PUV is on alert for possible retaliation by the NPA following yesterday's clashes that killed 10 rebels.
What led to the Marcos administration to change its tune on the International Criminal Court's investigation into the Duterte drug war? Well, a former palace official thinks it may have something to do with destabilization rumors.
And with still 5 days to go before the new year, fireworks-related injuries climb to 52. How is the sale of fireworks and firecrackers ahead of New Year's Day celebrations? Welcome to the show. I'm Dani Laurel.
And I'm Riza Diaz.
We begin tonight with fatalities from the Christmas Day clash between the AFP and the NPA rebels climbing to 10. Now, soldiers initially counted 9 fatalities, but the 4th Infantry Battalion of the Philippine Army says one more dead body of an NPA rebel has been recovered from the clash site in Manibela City, Bukidnon. That was this morning. The AFP said they conducted the operations in response to reports of extortion activities by the armed rebels in at least 4 barangays since December 21st. The 4th Infantry Division says it conducted air and ground attacks in the hinterlands of these barangays in Manibela City. The operating troops also recovered 8 high-caliber firearms from the encounter site, as well as gasoline and a flag of the rebel group. The encounter came just hours after the CPP-NPA declared a unilateral holiday ceasefire, which the military had rejected. The CPP-NPA has yet to release a statement on that encounter.
As far as we know, as far as I know, no instructions coming from our leadership about ceasefire. So we will continue our operations and we will locate, find them, fix them, and finish them if they will fight the government forces.
In other news, the government continues to study its position in dealing with the International Criminal Court and possibly returning as a member. But if you ask former palace spokesperson Harry Roque, there may be more as to why the Marcos government suddenly changed its tune. In his online program, The Spoks Hour, Attorney Roque claimed that the change in position regarding the ICC may have something to do with destabilization rumors that surfaced early last month. Recall that the AFP chief, Romeo Browner, claimed to have been misquoted after mentioning supposed destabilization efforts among former military officials. Roque said President Marcos may have gotten the wrong idea after his predecessor, Rodrigo Duterte, met with military veterans.
Hindi ko alam kung anong topic na usapan nila, pero baka may kinalaman yung sinasabi ni Armed Forces Chief of Staff Browner na destab. So at that point, nagkaroon ng duda na baka nagdi-destab itong si FPRRD. Samahan mo pa na biglang nagpulong si FPRRD kay President Xi. Diyan daw nabago. At diyan nagdesisyon daw ang PBBM mismo na makipagtulungan sa ICC at pag-aralan ang pagbalik sa ICC. Hindi po pala si House Speaker ito, si Presidente PBBM. Di umano ang nasa likod dito.
Okay, let's just clarify, because General Browner already did clarify that he was taken out of context when he gave that speech, that there's no such thing as a destabilization or a plot that's happening against the Marcos administration. So
very interestingly, now, of course, we're going to be talking about that with our guests later on.
Right.
This is a show of former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, where he's claiming that that was actually the catalyst that brought all of this ICC rejoining to resurface. But there's also, specifically, this issue comes on the heels of the MUP pension reform. Remember that ex-President Rodrigo Duterte was actually the one that hiked the pay for the soldiers, for the police personnel. That was enacted during his term. And now the pension reform is looming. Question is also, whether that has anything to do with the relationship, of course, between PBBM and VP Sara.
Well, we know this, this administration, Dani, Marcos administration, has been taking a lot of steps, right, in ensuring in promoting the welfare of military uniformed personnel, whether male or female, for that matter, diba? Yung increase in their pay, their retirement, and all that. Could it be just coincidental with all of these
Well, we will
could
find out.
ex-spokesperson Harry Roque have, may have, but if you listen to his, that narrative,
27-minute
there's-
program.
That's a lot of dows or according to. So we'll see. It's hard to judge from our end. But now, Attorney Roque wasn't wrong in pointing out, though, that there appears to be a shift in the position with the ICC. If we go back to last year, shortly after assuming office, President Marcos said the Philippines has no intention of rejoining the ICC. Now, in February this year, he maintained that position, saying he could not cooperate with its probe on the Duterte drug war rather. Now, a few months after July, the chief executive appeared to have closed the doors on the ICC, saying, "We're done talking to them." But just last month, President Marcos confirmed that the government is studying whether to resume its ICC membership. He did temper expectations, though, saying jurisdiction issues remain.
And it remains to be seen whether the Philippines will indeed shift its course and cooperate with the ICC's drug war investigation. And good for us tonight, we actually have with us international law professor Attorney Romel Bagares to talk to us about this. Attorney Bagares is also a member of the Philippine Coalition for the International Criminal Court. Good evening, Attorney.
Good evening, Danny and Riza. It's a pleasure to be with you in your program tonight.
Attorney, let's kick off with this shift, quote unquote, of PBBM regarding the Philippines rejoining, if you can, ICC. This is under study. Give us an idea of how important this could be and the impact of this, particularly in the former President Duterte's drug war.
Well, I think we have to peg this to what happened in the ICC in July. Remember, in July, there was a ruling issued by the ICC on the appeals petitions filed by the Philippines. And in that ruling, the appeals chamber upheld what was earlier said in the pretrial chamber that the ICC retains jurisdiction over a certain period of time where the alleged drug killings happened in the Philippines. And after that, there was a hearing in Congress, and I think that was a few weeks back, where the Solicitor General said that the Philippines, I think in his words, in so many words, he was saying that they accept the results of the appeal, and the stance that they're taking is non-interference, but non-cooperation.
Attorney, if the Philippines government does not cooperate with the probe, there are other means to proceed with the investigation, correct or wrong? And how reliable is that?
Well, I think if I go by what the Solicitor General said, they will allow investigators in the Philippines, but they will not interfere with the investigation. Neither will they cooperate. So if there's a request for, say, documents from the government, they will not provide those documents, but the prosecutors or the investigators will be free to interview witnesses in the Philippines. And as you recall, in the rulings of the appeals chamber, there was the stress on a continuing obligation, a residual, although that's residual with respect to the period when the Philippines was still a party to the ICC. So there is a residual obligation to cooperate with the investigation.
Okay, but just give us an idea of whether this is a real possibility. The Philippines returning to the ICC, what would that look like at this point that we've exited and we're reapply? Is this a reapplication? And does the president actually have legal authority to unilaterally decide this?
Well, you know, the language of the Rome Statute does not really have an express provision on how a party may wish to rejoin, but from practice we've seen in international law, there are really four options for the Philippines. The first one is to submit a notice that it is accepting the jurisdiction of the ICC on a limited basis, only with respect to the investigation. The second one will not require that, but just to discharge its residual obligations. I already mentioned this under Article 127, Paragraph 2 of the Rome Statute, with respect to obligations that already vested at the time the Philippines was still a party and before it withdrew from the ICC. The third will be a full returned to the ICC, including jurisdiction from the beginning to the present time. And the fourth, I think this is what the OSG has done, to say that we are not cooperating, but neither are we interfering with the investigations.
Attorney Harry Roque said in his vlog that the members of the ICC are already in the country conducting investigations and all that. Now, for reference, this is what he said.
Kung dati, sikreto, dahil yung mga panahon pong nalalaman ko labas-pasok, tutulpa si PBBM sa ICC. Kung dati po pa sikreto, mukha ngayon po, hindi inaamin, pero talagang totoong nangyayari. Malungkot po, dahil ang suma total, dahil lamang sa politika, mukhang pinabaliwala natin ang soberenya at ang pagiging independente ng ating mahal na bayang Pilipinas.
Attorney, going back your thoughts, meron na nga bang ICC na nag-iimbestiga sa ating bansa? And if they are already here, what are they doing?
I don't think I am in the position. I am speaking here as an academic. I don't have personal knowledge of whether they're actually present here. But this much I can say, that the ICC Appeals Chamber has already rendered a ruling that the Philippines has a residual obligation. And if they are here, then that will just be pursuant to what the Solicitor General himself has said a few back, that the Philippines will not cooperate, but neither will the Philippines actually interfere with the investigations already being carried out, whether they're happening now in the Philippines or they're yet to happen. Apparently, if I go by what the OSG has said, there will be no interference, there will be no preventing the investigators, but the investigators are not to expect active or formal cooperation from the Philippine government on the matter of investigation.
Attorney, no, you are a member of the Philippine Coalition for the ICC. Give us an idea of how acceding or going back to the ICC would affect the Philippines' image globally in terms of our reputation, how our courts are here. Is this something that the government is seriously taking into consideration?
Now, let me maybe broaden the context. We have this problem in the South China Sea. We have a case. We won it, but the Chinese government has opted for a policy of non-participation. And we're saying that there is an obligation on the part of China to comply with its obligations. And if we are going to be consistent with the same position, we also have to look at how we are discharging our obligations under Article 127 of the Rome Statute. Now, the Rome Statute says, even after withdrawal, there are certain obligations that vest before the withdrawal of the state party. And based on the ruling issued by the Appeals Chamber, we do have that obligation to cooperate with respect to the period, the events of a period during which the Philippines was still a party before withdrawal. So if we want the international community to actually believe what we're saying with respect to the South China Sea question, that is that we have a treaty obligation, the Chinese have a treaty obligation that they have not been discharging, that they have not been complying with, we should likewise actually comply with what the Appeals Chamber said with respect to our residual obligations to cooperate on questions that are still covered by the temporal jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court.
All right, so function of consistency there to illustrate that as well to the international community. Thank you so much for joining us, Attorney Romel Bagares.
You're welcome.
Well, up next, we'll continue our discussion on Attorney Harry Roque's recent statements on the ICC probe. Former political advisor Ronald Llamas will be joining us later. Don't go away. You're watching the big story here on One News. Now, still a lot to unpack from the recent statements of former President Spokesperson Harry Roque. Let's dig a little deeper into the political aspect of the conversation with political analyst Ronald Llamas. He's joining us. He's a former political advisor to the late President Noynoy Aquino. Sir, good evening. Welcome to the big story.
Good evening, Danny, Riza. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Christmas,
sir. Okay, so there's no destabilization plots according to former spokesperson Harry Roque after former President Rodrigo Duterte talked to the military. Pero iba daw po yung nakarating kay President BBM. Let's listen in to that sound from that statement from former Speaker Harry Roque.
Yung chismis na galing sa mga militar ng pag-uusap di umano ay distab. Diyan daw nabago. At diyan nagdesisyon daw ang PBBM mismo na makipagtulungan sa ICC at pag-aralan ang pagbalik sa ICC. Hindi po pala si House Speaker ito, si Presidente PBBM. Di umano ang nasa likod dito. At tanging namang si PBBM lang ang po pwedeng gumawa ng ganitong desisyon dahil siya ang hepe ng ehekutibo.
Okay, former spokesperson Harry Roque, correction on that. Now, sir, do you believe it's walang destabilization plot? Sino kaya itong sinasabi na perhaps bumulong kay BBM about meron or not na destabilization na pinag-uusapan?
Medyo hindi naman bago yung mga sinabi ni former spokesperson Harry Roque. More than a month ago, pinag-uusapan na kasi yan eh. Kung maalala nyo, no less than the Chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, si AFP Chief Browner, nagsabi na may mga destabilization plots at mga even coup attempts against the President. No? At may indirectly, ay binanggit naman niya ni ex-President Duterte nung sinabi niya na kinakausap niya yung mga generals. No? Kinakausap niya yung mga generals at nag-warning din siya na sa gobyerno na ingat dahil medyo galit yung military at saka police. Ang exact words nga ni ex-President Duterte ay mangamba tayo dun sa military at saka police dahil medyo galit. Lalo na dito daw sa pagpasok ng peace talks with the communist rebels. No? So, hindi bago yung sinasabi ni ex-spokesperson Harry Roque. Sabi lang niya na ito ay politika, pwede. Pero lahat naman nangyayari sa Pilipinas, merong certain level of politics. Pero sabi nga ni Attorney Romel Bagares kanina, it's more about yung ating mga legal obligations. Dahil hindi kasi pwede na tayo ay nag-cherry picking. I-invoke natin yung international law when it comes to UNCLOS against China, but when it comes to the International Criminal Court, ay sasabihin natin na hindi tayo makikialam dito. Katulad nung sinabi ng gobyerno early this year na sila ay sarado sa ICC, hindi nila papapasukin yung ICC at yung Philippine Congress at Philippine Senate ay naglabas pa ng resolution na poprotektahan nila si ex-President Duterte laban sa investigasyon ng ICC. Pero ngayong bago matapos yung taon, ay mukhang nagbago yung ihip ng hangin. More than a month ago, sabi ng gobyerno, ay seriously na pinag-aaralan nila yung pagpasok ng ICC sa bansa. At seriously pinag-aaralan nila yung posibleng pagbabalik natin ng membership sa ICC. This was clearly a writing on the wall. No? Kaya yung sinasabi ni spokesperson Harry Roque ay nag-emanate lang dyan sa writing on the wall na yan. Hindi naman siguro pwedeng yung pinag-uusapan ni ex-President Duterte at yung mga generals ay paano gumawa ng omelette o paano magluto ng adobo. No? Kahit paano, may pinag-uusapan silang politika. Kaya siguro seryoso yung mga marites tungkol sa destabilization. No? Yung pag-amin ni ex-President Duterte, nakausap niya yung mga general, medyo malalim yung kahulugan niyan.
Okay. Sir, just to clarify your thoughts. Sir, just to clarify your thoughts, no, for you, hindi po knee-jerk reaction on the part of PBBM na mag-change ng tune. In fact, it's something that, as you mentioned, is consistent with the international community views that, you know, for us to respect the international community, especially since we're fighting for our rights in the West Philippine Sea. Tama ba? Is that what you mean, sir?
Yes, dahil siguro may nag-brief na sa presidente na noong December 2021, even our own Supreme Court ay inamin at tinanggap na may jurisdiction ng ICC dito sa kung sino man yung kakasuhan dito sa Pilipinas. Dahil sabi nga ni Attorney Romel Bagares, no, meron tayong obligasyon sa ICC kahit umalis na tayo kung yung kaso ay nagsimula bago tayo umalis. No? Kaya malinaw yan. Even our own Supreme Court ay inamin yan, tinanggap yan last December 2021. Baka hindi lang na-brief yung Presidente early this year, kaya sinabi niya na hindi sila makikipag-coordinate sa ICC. Ikalawa, yung sinabi ko kanina, na hindi pwedeng mag-cherry picking ang gobyerno. I-invoke nila yung international law when it comes to UNCLOS, tapos hindi nila i-invoke when it comes to the ICC. So malamang na-brief na yung Presidente tungkol dyan. Pero then again, siyempre kasama rin dyan ang politika. Dahil yung Uniteam ay hindi na unified. Kaya yung solido na koalisyon between the Duterte and the Marcoses ay hindi na ganun kasolido. So siyempre yan ay nakadagdag doon sa desisyon ng Presidente na seriously pag-aralan yung pagpasok ng ICC sa ating bansa. Definitely, no? Hindi naman siguro tayo naive para isipin na walang politika dito. Pero mas malakas na batayan ay yung usapin ng international law. Yung ating obligation sa treaty na pinirmahan natin at obligado tayong sundin bilang isang bansa. Hindi ito yung sinasabi ni Spokesperson Harry Roque, sayang, abogado pa naman siya. Hindi ito pagsagka sa ating soberenya. Bahagi ito ng ating soberenya na tayo ay susunod sa treaty na ating pinirmahan.
Okay. Attorney, on that note, sabi nga po ni Attorney Roque, hindi daw si Speaker Romualdez ang, ang may pakana ng pagbubuhay nitong idea of to rejoin ICC or, to participate or whatever in that probe. Pakinggan natin yung sinabi ni Spokesperson Harry Roque.
Nagkataon lang na nagkakaroon ng personalan si House Speaker at saka si VP Sara do mga panahon nito dahil doon sa tambaluslos at saka doon sa confidential funds. Pero ang tingin ko kaya na nahimik na si PBBM ay dahil nakarating nga kay PBBM daw yung pag-uusap ni FPRRD sa mga militar.
Sir, you were mentioning this. Somehow, does this mean na wala talagang kinalaman dito yung confidential fund issue versus, Vice President Sara, or is it still part of it?
Una, mali yung assumption ni ex-spokesperson Harry Roque na itong decision na ito ay decision lang dati ni Speaker. Mali yung kanyang assumption dahil itong decision na ito ay hindi pwedeng walang bendisyon yung Presidente from the very start. Tingin ko from the very start, ito ay alam ng Presidente. From the very start, ito ay may blessing ng Presidente. Yung pagtanggal kay ex-President Arroyo as Senior Deputy Speaker at eventually as Deputy Speaker, yung pagtanggal ng daang-daang milyon na intelligence at saka confidential fund kay Vice President Sara Duterte, itong pag-aaral sa pagpasok ng ICC at pagbabalik sa ICC. At tingin ko from the very start ay mali yung assumption ni spokesperson Harry Roque. Napaka-narrow ng kanyang assumption na ito ay si Speaker Martin Romualdez lang. Kaya kinokorek niya yung sarili niya at this point. Pero from the start, medyo mali yung kanyang assumption. Ang tingin ko, hindi pwedeng nangyari lahat ito nang hindi alam ng Presidente, nang walang blessing ng Presidente. Kaya yung nangyayari ngayon ay dulo na lamang nung desisyon as a government, as a team. No? Hindi ng Speaker lang, hindi ng Presidente lang, kung hindi bilang isang grupo sa loob ng gobyerno. No? Tingin ko yun yung baka mas accurate na pagtingin from the very start.
Okay. Speaking of which, no, let's shift from the ICC situation to the politics that's going on. As you mentioned, the Uniteam is still existing ba or not? Is that dismantling in your opinion? And just in a scenario that full-blown Marcos versus Duterte yung scenario, what would be the impact on the economic landscape, on the political landscape?
Tingin ko, Risa, hindi lang nawala yung unity ng Uniteam. Ito ay open warfare na. Kaya medyo colorful, medyo intense, medyo masaya yung ating bagong taon. Hindi lang mapuputukan yung mga fireworks. Ang tingin ko, no, after ng New Year, ay makikita natin yung open warfare. Na medyo sinimulan na rin ni Vice President Sara Duterte nung binanatan niya si President Bongbong Marcos dun sa kanyang peace talk, no? A deal with the devil. Parang sinasabi ni Vice President Sara Duterte, medyo aliado na ng demonyo si President Bongbong Marcos dahil nakikipag-deal siya sa demonyo, no? Tingin ko ito yung start ng open warfare. At itong inaamin ni spokesperson Harry Roque na hindi na manhid o hindi na nakatago sa kanila itong usapin ng ICC na ito ay pinayagan na ng Presidente. Na noon pa man ay mukhang pinayagan na, ay tingin ko ito yung magiging major confrontation early next year. At ito ay open warfare na. In a sense, this could be an existential issue between the two camps, the Marcoses and the Duterte. Existential para sa Duterte dahil kung matuloy yung pagpasok at pag-implement ng international warrant ng ICC sometime next year, possibly sa second quarter next year, ay mawawala na yung kanilang political future, no? Madudurog na sila ng gusto unless pagmamigrate sila sa China, no? At dahil sila ay natulak na sa corner, ito ay delikado rin para sa Marcos government. Dahil hindi naman papahuli ng buhay yung mga Duterte. Siyempre sila ay lalaban to the max. Kaya medyo delikado rin sa mga Marcoses.
Sir, wala na bang hope?
Pero limited lang
Wala
yung
na
mga options ng
wala na bang
mga
hope,
Duterte,
sir, na
ng
mag-reconcile?
mga Duterte.
Sir, wala na bang hope mag-reconcile? What could possibly lead to that? You still have Senator Amy Marcos loyal to the Dutertes.
May hirapan eh. Lagi
Wala
naman
na,
nandun
wala
yung
na.
possibility, Risa. No? Pero baka mahirapan dahil too much water under the bridge. No? Medyo malalim na yung sugat, the lines are drawn, at yung lines ay medyo parang bangin na eh. Mahirap na tumawid. No? At yung mga Duterte, ang option nila ay limited na rin. Hindi sila pwede mag-impeachment dahil hindi naman nila hawak ang Congress, hindi sila pwede mag-kudeta or destabilization dahil sabi nga ni Armed Forces Chief of Staff Browner, hawak pa rin nila yung chain of command, mahihirapan naman sila mag-people power dahil wala naman silang people dito sa NCR, baka sa Davao. So the options for the Duterte are also very limited. Kaya nakasandal sila sa pader.
Sir, regardless of the
sa
fact...
pader ang mga Duterte, they can also be very dangerous.
Sir, regardless of the fact na above 90% pa rin yung approval rating ni VP Duterte, I mean at least anecdotally, no, for the presidency.
Hindi ko alam kung ano yung latest survey, pero ang alam ko, pare-parehas silang bumababa eh. No? Hindi lamang si PBBM, kundi pati yung mga Duterte. No? Hindi ko alam yung latest na mga survey, pero yung trajectory nitong nakaraang tatlong survey ay pare-parehas silang bumababa. Kaya ang tingin ko ay medyo tabla naman yung laban in terms of popularity. Pero ang usapin dito, Risa, Danny, ay hindi lang usapin ng popularity. It's about power. Sino ba ang may control ng mga local government units? Sino ba may control ng Congress at saka Senate? Sino ba may control ng police at saka armed forces? Yun yung mas mahalaga eh. No, hindi naman ito usapin ng popularity. Kung maalala nyo, nung bumagsak si ex-President Erap Estrada, very popular pa rin siya noon. Pero hindi nakatulong yung kanyang popularity sa kanyang pagbagsak at sa kanyang pagkakakulong. No?
One last question, sir.
So there are more variables involved here than popularity.
Last question, sir. As a political analyst yourself, how do you think the public would see this? I mean, President Marcos was very firm and strong in his position now. We won't allow ICC investigation. We're done talking to them. Then now he changes his mind.
Tingin ko, karamihan sa mga tao ay wala na mga hard and fast decision tungkol dito. Tingin ko, karamihan sa mga tao ay naghihintay ng maayos na paliwanag. Kaya yung mga pros and cons, tingin ko ay nasa minority naman. Yung malaki, yung big middle, ay naghihintay kung ano pa talaga ang mangyayari. At kung paano ito ipapaliwanag ng mga tao katulad ni Atty. Romy Bagares, katulad ng gobyerno, katulad ng civil society, tingin ko malaking bahagi pa rin ng ating populasyon ay naghihintay ng tamang paliwanag.
All right. Then we're part of that population that's waiting for an explanation. Sir, we appreciate you joining us and sharing with us your insight. That was former political advisor Ronald Llamas. Thank you, sir. Up next, we're down to our last few days before the end of the year, which is also the deadline for PUV Consolidation. Manibela Chairman Mar Valbuena will be discussing the transport group's plans in preparation for that. So keep it here on One News.
You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Now, with just 5 days to go before the new year, the government has remained firm in its stand not to extend the deadline for the consolidation of operators to comply with the PUV Modernization program. According to the Transportation Department, there will be no more extension beyond December 31st due date. This despite appeals from drivers and operators to give them more time to comply with the policy. Now, several transport groups have since hit the streets once more to protest the PUV modernization program. For their part, Transport Group Piston remains hopeful that a temporary restraining order will be issued by the Supreme Court. Manibela, on the other hand, appealed for compassion from President Bongbong Marcos regarding the drivers and operators facing livelihood loss due to the LTFRB suspension in January 2024. Now, the group said there are still around 40,000 traditional jeepney units that have yet to join the consolidation.
And here to discuss their plans ahead of the deadline for the PUV consolidation, we have with us live via Zoom Manibela Chairman Mar Valbuena. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight, sir.
Good evening, Ma'am Sean and Ma'am Regina. Tama po ba?
Danny and Risa po tonight. Pero sir, let's kick off with the issue, no? So you still have 40,000 na hindi pa po sumasali and the deadline is in a few days already. Ano pong percentage yan sa members ng Manibela? How many have joined? How many are planning to join before the deadline? And if they're not planning to join even by December 31, give us the reason for that.
Siguro, Mama Rica, yung hindi pa nakakapag-join sa amin sa consolidation, siguro around 100,000 pa
Talaga?
nationwide. And sa NCR alone, siguro nasa 25 to 28,000 pa kami. And sa yung gagawin namin, kailangan lang makakuha tayo ng TRO sa ngayon.
Bakit po, ano po yung reason kung bakit 100,000 pa po ang hindi sumasali? Especially given po na pinadali na yung ways to consolidate. Affidavit na lang po of I want to consolidate. Yun na lang po yung requirement, di ba, by the end of the year.
Ma'am Risa, hindi naman dun sa pinadali yung requirements. Ang issue dito, yung sapilitang pagsali namin sa kooperatiba and doon sa consolidation. Yun talaga yung tinututulan natin dito. Pero yung PUVMP, yung modernization ng mga sasakyan, sang-ayon naman tayo dito, lalo na doon sa mga, alam nating mga dilapidated na mga sasakyan. So yung consolidation na to, ayaw natin na ma-monopolize yung ating mga franchises and yung mga routes.
Sir, ang sabi po ng LTFRB at nilinaw po nila that there will be no phase-out of jeepneys and traditional jeepneys that are still part of PUVMP. Ang condition lang is kailangan po daw, they should be roadworthy. Ano po ang inyong opinion dyan? Nakausap niyo po ba, ang inyo po bang grupo, nakausap na po ba ang LTFRB at ang Department of Transportation ukol dito?
Tama po kayo, Ma'am Dani, no? Yung roadworthiness ng ating mga sasakyan. So okay tayo dyan. Ang tinututulan nga po natin dito, hindi naman po yung pag-phase out mismo ng ating mga, etong at this point of time na ang tinututulan lang talaga natin, yung pag-consolidate ng aming mga franchise. And yung ibang components nito, nagko-comply naman po tayo.
Sir Mar, ilang araw na lang po ang natitira? 5 araw na lang po bago po mag-2024. Ano pong plano ng Manibela? Kung sakaling yung hinihiling niyo po sana na TRO hindi po maibaba, hindi po dumating?
Opo, alam niyo, marami kami pang mga options na pwedeng gawin, katulad ng magmarcha papunta sa Mindiola para ipanawagan yung pag-extend o pagbabalik ng ating mga provisional authority. Kahit provisional authority lang na hanggang December next year o maibalik na talaga yung aming mga prangkisa, talagang nakikiusap kami sa ating Pangulo na sana magkaroon siya ng puso sa ating mga pobreng tsuper at operator, na ito lamang yung alam po na kabuhayan natin sa ngayon dahil nga wala namang available po na pagkakakitaan at ito na yung niyakap naming kabuhayan at ang hirap na nga makahanap ng trabaho, tatanggalan pa yung may mga trabaho o may hanap buhay.
Sir, linawin po natin, no, hindi naman, sang-ayon po kayo doon sa to modernize the jeepneys. Hindi lang kayo sang-ayon dito sa consolidation. But the idea po ng consolidation is para mas mura yung pagiging modernization, di ba? Kasi ang laki ng gastos nun. So makakakuha po kayo ng loan dun sa gobyerno, matutulungan po kayo as a cooperative. Bakit po very against po kayo dito sa consolidation at meron bang pera ang karaniwang jeepney driver na mag-modernize ng sarili niyang jeepney without consolidation?
doon sa experience natin, Mama, yung nakapag-modernize kami unti-unti ng aming mga units na hindi kinakailangang sumali sa kooperatiba, hindi kinakailangang mag-consolidate at hindi kinakailangang mag-loan ng napakamahal. Imagine mo 600 to 800,000 pesos. Napakaganda na pong mga units ang ating mapuproduce nito, lalo na kung may subsidy pa na manggagaling po sa gobyerno. Yung 280,000, siguro more or less mga 500,000 na lang ang kailangan naming i-loan para doon sa pag-modernize ng aming mga sasakyan. So yung sinasabi nila na mas mapagbibigyan kami ng loan kapag naka-kooperatiba kami o nakapag-consolidate kami, hindi po yun ang tinitignan natin dito. Kasi kapag fleet na rin, kapag kaya nila ginagawang fleet, para kapag nag-loan kami, hindi bababa talaga ng 10 o 15 units kagad ang kailangan naming i-loan. So ang tinitignan natin dito, mapagbigyan nila yung mga investors o yung mga manufacturers.
Meron ba kayong
At
hinihiling...
narinig ko rin doon sa isang panayam sa sa taga DOTR na ang sinasabi niya kailangan talaga magkaroon nga ng deadline dahil doon sa mga investors na hindi na rin makapaghintay.
Okay. Sir, kung ganun po yung hinihiling ninyo, so no consolidation pero go naman doon sa modernization, gaano katagal po yung hinihiling yung oras para ma-modernize ang mga PUVs individually?
Alam niyo, Ma'am Risa, matagal na nating hiniling ito. Simula pa nung i-launch itong PUBMP, nagpapakita na tayo ng mga modelo ng ating mga sasakyan. Pero ang pinipilit nila, kasi nga kapag nakapag-consolidate na kami, wala na talaga kaming laya na itong mga itong mas mura at mas matibay na mga jeepney natin ang kailangan kunin.
Sir Mar, panghuling...
Yung mga pinakita namin na mga sasakyan ng mga nakaraang araw, 3 years ago pa namin ito, 2019 pa namin ito na modernize. Pero bakit hindi ito yung ina-aprobahan na mga units at yung scheme sana na ginawa namin, mapag-aralan nila para ito yung sana maging guide na hindi na kinakailangan pang magtalo kami sa consolidation.
Sir, panghuli na lamang po, ano po yung mga plano ninyo kayo sa Manibela kung sakali nga pong lumagpas na po sa deadline at hindi po naibigay yung TRO?
Unang-una, Ma'am Dani, Ma'am Risa, na tayo ay hindi nawawalan ng pag-asa na mati-TRO pa rin natin ito, although hindi na ilagay yung pangalan natin doon sa petitioner. Umaasa tayo na maaaring bukas hanggang 29 lumabas na yung TRO, at kung hindi man siguro talagang lalapit tayo sa Malacanang para ipakiusap sa ating Pangulo na wag naman sanang bigyan ng deadline yung ating mga prangkisa at makapagpatuloy kami sa aming hanapbuhay.
Maraming salamat po, Manibela Chairperson Mar Valbuena. Pausing for another break right after that. 5 days before the new year, more and more cases of firecracker-related injuries have been reported. More on this when the big story returns. Stay with us.
You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Now here's one story that Filipinos should be wary about. Cases of firecracker-related incidents continue to rise ahead of the New Year's Day celebrations. From just 4 cases daily from December 22nd to 24, the total number of fireworks-related injuries this holiday season has now climbed to 52. That's after the Health Department recorded 24 fireworks-related injuries today, December 26. 5 of these patients underwent traumatic amputation, resulting in lost or mangled fingers and hands. 3 of them were minors and 2 were adults. Metro Manila accounted for 38% of these injuries. The Department of Health has since urged local governments and authorities to stop the sale of illegal fireworks in their localities. But speaking of sales, the prices of some firecrackers and lights have increased in the fireworks capital of the country, Bukawi, in Bulacan. If before, each price of quitis costed only 6 pesos, now it is 8 pesos. And for 100 pieces, it is now 800 pesos. That's up from the previous 600 pesos. The 1,000 shots of sawa also increased by 200 pesos from 600 pesos to 800 pesos. And if you're looking for aerial fireworks, the cheapest is the 16-shot priced from 1,800 pesos now to 2,000 pesos. This is up from the previous 1,600 to 1,700 pesos. According to the vendors, there's high demand but limited supply of firecrackers and fireworks, so expect the prices to rise as December 31 or New Year's Eve is fast approaching.
Now, how are other concerned agencies looking to address the possible increase of firecracker-related injuries this year? Let's bring in Brian Basa to get more details. Brian, what do you have for us?
Hi, Riza, it's not just health officials and personnel who have been on alert about the possible rise in firecracker-related injuries over the past week and the coming days. The Bureau of Fire Protection has since placed the country on code red in preparation for the New Year celebrations. That means all firefighters are ready to respond to incidents from December 23rd until January 3rd. The BFP is going around towns and cities to inspect firecracker makers and sellers. Hospitals, meanwhile, are also readying themselves for that possible surge in patients with firecracker-related injuries. 8 of them have been treated here at the Jose Reyes Memorial Medical Center in Manila. 4 of these patients were injured by 5-star or triangle firecrackers. Others got their wounds from whistle bomb, baby rocket, and quitis. Doctors are now concerned that this year's number of firework-related injuries may exceed last year's. That's why they're calling on everyone to stay safe and away from firecrackers as we ring in the new year, so that we can all start 2024 on a good note. Back to you.
Thank you for those updates. That was Brian Basa. Well,
Bakit naman kasi?
KJ ako. Ayoko rin talaga ng firecrackers.
What's the excitement?
It's been a tradition for a lot.
Fireworks pwede pa, pero firecrackers.
It's so dangerous.
Diba?
Oo. Pero ang talagang dapat kumbaga mahuli or to stop or the sale.
Yeah.
Because people, if
Selling
they don't
to
have access to
minors.
it.
Exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Ayan.
Oh,
That is the show tonight. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
thank you and good night.